Hey guys, welcome to Motoroids, the channel where you get no-nonsense, in-depth reviews of all the latest cars and motorcycles. My name is Amit, and as you would know, this motorcycle, the Scrambler X, the 400X, is the more versatile brother of the Speed 400, the street-focused Speed 400, and a lot of you have been waiting for this motorcycle. Now, before we start talking about the performance and how good it is on the road, off the road, and let me just tell you, there are quite a few revelations. I was expecting a few things a certain way, but they did not turn out that way. So you need to stick here and understand how different this motorcycle is from the Speed. That's very important. But why is it different is more important to understand. And while there are many visual differences, there are many cosmetic changes, we are going to talk about the performance related changes between the Speed 400 and this motorcycle to understand why this motorcycle behaves the way it does. Now, in terms of the engine, this is the same 4-valve DOHC liquid-cooled engine that produces 40 PS at 8,000 RPM and 37.5 Newton meters at 6,500 RPM. It's the same as the Speed 400. However, the engine braking on this engine is a little bit more aggressive. So if you're going down a slope and you're using engine braking, this will have more resistance. So that's one difference. Of course, as you can see, the ground clearance here is a lot more. It's 195 mm as opposed to 158 mm on the Speed 400. And the rake angle here is also sharper by 1.4 degrees. The trail is longer by 6 mm and the wheelbase here is also longer. So all of these are very technical changes that this motorcycle has undergone. The front wheel is bigger, it's 19-inch as opposed to the 17-inch you get on the Speed. And at the rear, while the wheel size is the same, the tire section here is bigger. So essentially the drive on the tire is bigger. So it's a bigger radius and that has to be compensated for if the performance has to be same. And for that, the sprocketing here has also been changed. So while the Speed has 15 teeth up front, this one gets a 14 teeth sprocket up front, so that the gearing is more or less the same. And how it affects the performance, I'm going to let you know in a little bit, but you need to understand all the things which are different first. Now, apart from this, the seat height here is also quite high. On the Speed, you have 790 mm of seat height, while here you have a really tall 835 mm of seat height. And I am not a short person. I'm about 5 feet 10, and as you can see, I have to tiptoe if I have to keep this bike on balance while it's off the stand. So if you're a short rider, if you're anything less than 5 feet 8, you will find it a little difficult if you're not a skilled rider to navigate this motorcycle if you are riding at slow speed. So that's again something that you need to understand. Apart from that, the rider triangle also here is different, and the handlebar here is raised and it has this cross brace, which means that your riding triangle is very different from the Speed. So there you have a slightly more aggressive stance where you can put some weight on your wrists. Here you cannot, obviously, because this is a Scrambler, you'll take it off the road as well and you have to straddle it. So the reason why the handlebar is raised is that it's meant to be used off-road as well. Now, apart from that, the weight on this motorcycle is also more than the Speed. So here you have 185 kg of curb weight, which is 9 kgs more than the Speed. So the weight is more here. And apart from that, the tires are heavier too, because these are block pattern tires. So all of these changes are very important to understand before we start reviewing this motorcycle, because that's how this motorcycle behaves differently. So today in the morning, when I started riding this motorcycle on some really beautiful ghat sections in Kolad, which is this beautiful region here in Maharashtra, the roads were really inviting, and I really thought that this motorcycle would be close, if not as good as the Speed 400 around the bends. But that's where the differences really start showing. So the frame itself is a little different. The headstock is pushed away a little bit. And as I mentioned, the motorcycle is higher, it's heavier. So in effect, you don't feel as connected to the road as you do on the Speed 400. And while you're riding, you do feel that this is not as flickable, it is not as sharp. It takes the long sweeping bends really nicely, but around the tighter bends, it's not as agile. It's not as easy as a Speed 400 to put this motorcycle down and pick it up again. Apart from that, the block pattern tires also are not as confidence inspiring as the ones on the Speed 400. The difference in the wheel sizes also plays its part, and The weight distribution also here is not the same as the speed, because here the weight distribution is 48-52, 48 up front and 52 at the rear, unlike the 50-50 weight distribution on the speed, which by itself is not a very front biased motorcycle. So the front here is lighter, and the front bigger wheel also does not lend it as good riding dynamics as the speed. So point being that on the road you'll instantly feel a difference in terms of its road holding, in terms of its agility. It's not as agile, feels a little bit heavy, feels a little bit more difficult around bends. If you're an aggressive rider like I am, you'll not feel as connected to the road as you will on the Speed 400, and that primarily is the biggest difference between the two motorcycles. Now, since the engine is the same, the gearing has also been kept the same, and for the most part the speeds that you'll get in each gear is essentially the same. So in the first gear you'll reach 50 on both the motorcycles, in second gear you'll reach 75 on both the motorcycles, in the speed you'll reach 100 on this one, in the third gear you'll reach 90, in the fourth gear 120 on both, in the fifth gear 140 on both, and the top speed speedo indicated is 160 kilometers per hour. Now the acceleration here understandably is slightly lesser. So while the speed does it in 7, it takes half a second more to reach its turn. So because of the heavier weight and the tires and everything else, this is slightly, very slightly slower in its acceleration to 60 and to 100, but the top speed on both the motorcycles is the same. But essentially when you're riding the motorcycle, you cannot be as aggressive as you can be on the speed. On the highways, it feels very planted. It is more of a leisure cruiser, I would say. It doesn't like to be hustled around corners. In a straight line, you can do 120 kilometers per hour all day long. That won't be a problem at all. In the sixth gear, if you're doing 100, you'd be seeing about 5,000 clicks. 120 will come at around 7,400 clicks. So you still have some space left. 9,000 RPM is where the limiter cuts in. So it is quite relaxed at 120, 125, 130 also. So if you want to be going long distance, that's where this motorcycle really wants to shine. Now, another aspect associated with its long distance capability, since this is not exactly a corner cover, is that the suspension, in my humble opinion, although it gets more suspension travel both up front and at the rear. So while up front you'll get about 10 mm suspension travel more, 150 mm in all, and at the rear you'll get 20 mm more travel here than the Speed 400. But this is still not a very absorbent suspension, I would say. The moment you get onto bad roads or on some soft roading surfaces like this one here, you do feel that the suspension isn't exactly very compliant for a motorcycle that isn't very sporty. It does have a sense of stiffness about it, and it isn't the most comfortable suspension that I have come across. At the rear you have a 10-step preload adjustment, and all the way until the 9th step to its softest setting, I did feel that it was slightly on the stiffer side. Only when I put it on the least preload did the suspension have sufficient give to be called comfortable. So unless you are very heavily built, if you're a light rider, the suspension may feel slightly firm to you. Now, another very important question that a lot of you would ask is, how capable is this motorcycle off the road? Now, you need to understand that this motorcycle is a scrambler. It's not an off-roader. So all of you who wanted to take this motorcycle to beat the trails, I really believe that this is meant to go soft roading only. The front 19-incher and the longer suspension travel and everything does lend it, along with, you know, the better ground clearance, does lend it with some capability of the road. I took it to a really long trail today, and my understanding was that while this motorcycle can handle trails reasonably well, this isn't exactly an off-roader. And where the differences really come to light is that when you compare it to a motorcycle like, say, the Himalayan, where the torque starts flowing in from as low as 1,000, 1,500 RPM, here you still have to keep it boiling about 2,500 to 3,000 RPM, and that's where the raciness of the engine comes into picture. It's not like a KTM where you really have to keep it on the boil, but from an off-roading perspective, you do need to keep it about 3000 RPM to keep it going. Also, the front 19-incher, while sufficient to handle rough terrains and soft trails, isn't exactly suitable for going completely off the road. So this motorcycle is good primarily for the highway, for bad broken roads, and also slightly off the road. So for example, if you are someone who wants to be going to the Himalayas, if you want to be touring in the Ladakh, this motorcycle lends itself rather well because it has sufficient power. It is reasonably comfortable. I would have liked the suspension for this kind of motorcycle to be slightly softer, but this is reasonably comfortable. The riding position is good. You can really straddle it, and all of those things really make it a motorcycle which can go slightly off the road, but beware, this is not an off-roader. And if you really wanted to take it off the road and wanted to go really fast off the trails, going over obstacles, that's really going to be a challenge for this one, because front suspension does not have much give. It still is quite firm for my liking, especially if you have to take it off the road. So whenever you hit a bump, you do feel it in your hands and arms. So it does give you a jerk back when you show it a bad patch. And that's what I mean when I say that it's not exactly a very soft or a very absorbent kind of suspension. On smooth highways, it's perfect. There is no problem. And as I had mentioned in my Speed 400 review as well, to get any sort of reasonable power where you have a reassuring acceleration, you need to keep it above 2,500 RPM. And once you take it above 5,000 RPM, there's a very strong surge of torque, and all the way up till 9,000 RPM. It feels very strong. For some reason, the vibrations on this motorcycle are also lesser than the Speed 400. It feels a little bit more refined, and especially for people who want a motorcycle which will primarily be used on the highways and occasional off-roading. Essentially, for touring, this motorcycle really lends itself very well. Now, another important aspect about performance is braking, and that's a significant aspect that has to be discussed while we talk about the Scrambler 400X, because the brakes on this motorcycle are bigger than the Speed 400. You have a 320 mm front disc, although the rear is the same, but you don't get sintered brake pads here. Now, since this is supposed to go off the road as well, what Triumph have done is they have blunted the braking on this motorcycle, so it's not as sharp. It doesn't have as much bite as the Speed 400. And I told you that the Speed 400 was particularly sharp. This motorcycle is not, and the brakes, in fact, on this motorcycle do feel a little bit soggy, and you are sometimes left wanting for more braking power. It's down to the fact that the brake pads are not sintered, and also the block pattern tires. So the braking on this motorcycle is not as reassuring as the Speed 400, and I did feel that generally speaking the braking could probably have been a little bit better. Now also, since the engine braking on this motorcycle is slightly more aggressive, especially when you are in lower gears, in say first, second or third gear, and you roll off the throttle, you do feel that the motorcycle is diving forward, because obviously the suspension has more travel. So you do feel that the motorcycle is a little bit more unsettled, and all of this taken together does make it a little bit more nervous than the Speed 400 around bends, and it does leave you a little bit more nervous than when you are on the Speed 400. Now the fit and finish and everything else is amazing, and now having talked about the performance part for the most part, let's also talk about the other changes on this motorcycle. So here the brace of the headlight is different. You get this grille on the headlight. You also get this grille on the radiator. You get this bash plate. Of course, the exhaust here is different. It's a twin barrel exhaust. In my personal opinion, this sounds a lot better than the Speed, and let's fire it up. Especially when you're riding it at slow speeds, it does feel very nice. It's not a thumpy exhaust like say the Royal Enfield exhaust, but it does have a nice bassy sound to it, and you would like it if you're not an out and out RE exhaust fan. Now the mirrors here are very functional. You can see what's coming from behind without any problem, and the instrument console here is exactly the same as the Speed. I had a problem with the Speed's instrument console about the legibility of the tachometer in particular. You really cannot figure out at what revs you are because it's very confusing, but apart from that it's reasonably legible. I really think it could have been a little bit better. An advantage that you get with this motorcycle is that you can switch the rear ABS off, since this is a Scrambler. So it does come with that option, which the Speed 400 does not. The mirror position here is different. On the Speed you have them on the sides. The levers are not adjustable. However, this motorcycle does come with the slipper and assist clutch, so the clutch action is pretty light, and today is a hot day and I have not felt any heat on my calves. The fit and finish, everything else is copy book Triumph, where we praised it to the moon and back in terms of its paint quality, the fit and finish, the way the engine has been finished, and this trademark fin treatment of the engine as well. So all of that has been kept the way it was. A few other changes: the grab rail is different, the branding here, obviously the Scrambler 400X branding is different. You get this pad here on the Scrambler 400. The tank is 13 liters, and with an average fuel efficiency of about 26-27 kmpl, you will get a range of around 300 kmpl, which is not bad at all. And if you come here on this side, you get this plate, which is a differentiation. The foot pegs are also different because you can remove this rubber and you can straddle it with more confidence. So you get these teeth for your foot pegs, and the brake pedal also has these teeth which allow you to have a better grip. You have this heat shield here, and the swing arm as well is a piece of art. It's made of aluminum, and overall the qualities that we mentioned about the Speed 400 are intact here. Lighting is LEDs all around, and all in all, the switchgear quality and everything else is fantastic. While a lot of people don't understand why a motorcycle which has only 40 PS should have riding modes, I believe that if there is competition, if there are features offered on other motorcycles within the segment or below the segment, I have all the right in the world to demand it, and that feature is not here. Some other motorcycles are now also offering cornering ABS, cornering traction control. So all of those features are not here, although traction control is here, which you can turn on and off, and that really is a great feature. Let's also quickly have a look at the switchgear, which is top quality. You have the flasher here, and the headlight buttons are here, turn indicators, and this is to toggle between all the readouts. You also get average and instantaneous fuel efficiency, by the way. This is the horn, engine kill switch, this is the hazard, and this is the ignition switch. All in all, it's a motorcycle that looks significantly bigger than the Speed 400. It has more presence on the road. A lot of people are going to turn their heads and look at it and also compare it with Royal Enfield for some reason, but this motorcycle has more presence, because I remember when I was riding the Speed 400, not so many people were looking at me, but this motorcycle turned a lot of heads because it has a higher seat height and it looks generally bigger in size. All in all, I was expecting a little bit more from this motorcycle. Namely, I thought that it would be a little bit more close to the Speed 400 on the road, and it will be a little bit more capable off the road as well. So that margin has been reduced a little bit at both the sides, but still it's a fantastic machine for someone who's looking at a very capable motorcycle. Obviously there are downsides as compared to the Speed 400. It doesn't have as good road holding when you're riding strictly on the street. The Speed 400 was pretty much at home on the Chakan test track of Bajaj as well. This one I don't see really doing very well there, obviously, because this is a Scrambler. The tires also are block pattern tires, so the grip is not all that great, and it does feel a little bit nervous also when you're pushing it to the limit. So all in all, if you're someone who wants to be primarily on the road, I would suggest that you should still incline more towards the Speed 400, especially if you're someone who's an enthusiastic rider, someone who's a more aggressive rider. If you're into corner carving and you enjoy your twisties and your canyon carving and going fast around corners, I think the Speed 400 is a significantly better motorcycle to ride because of the rider triangle and everything else that I just mentioned. However, if you're someone who's more into touring, who wants a motorcycle which is a little bit more balanced, a motorcycle which can go off the road also occasionally, not always a motorcycle which is meant for leisurely riding more than aggressive riding, then this motorcycle is better than the Speed 400. Also, if you want a motorcycle that has more presence, then the Scrambler 400X is the motorcycle for you. The price of this motorcycle is 2,63,000 rupees ex-showroom, which at this point is 30,000 rupees more than the Speed 400, and in return you get a bigger motorcycle which is more versatile and makes its presence felt on the road. Some really good qualities of this motorcycle include a 16,000 kilometer service interval and a 5-year standard warranty. So these are again amazing things about this motorcycle, and dealership and service station ramp up is happening, and we are told that by the end of April 2024, Triumph will have as many as 135 touch points. So if you are concerned about the availability or service of this motorcycle, that issue will also soon be resolved. I really hope that I was able to sum this motorcycle up in a manner you understood everything that was to be understood about this motorcycle. And if you like the video, do hit the like button. If you like good quality, in-depth reviews, do follow Motor Rides and tell your friends about us. And until next time, this is Amit Changani, your friend, signing off. Rev hard, rev free, and ride safe.